Good afternoon. We had a question on the Telegram group about the two-stage approach and just about explaining what the threshold inquiry and the justification inquiry entail again. So I thought maybe let's try it in a different way. Normally we have a person on the one hand who wants to do something. And then we have another person on the other hand, let's give this person different looks, who says, no, but I have reason to allege that you can't do what you want to do. This person will say, I have a right to do whatever I want to do. And this one will say, no, wait a bit. You can't do it like that. One of the examples that I used in today's lecture was the right to vote. Now, the right to vote would be contained in section 19(3)(a) of the Constitution. Our voter would get to the polling station and say to the official there, here I am, I'm an adult South African and I want to vote. And the official will say, no. In terms of the Electoral Act, you can't vote if you don't have your ID with a bar-coded insignia on it, because how will I otherwise be able to verify that you are indeed an adult South African citizen? So we will have this conflict between a right that is in the Constitution or between a party, one person relying on a right in the Constitution and another person or another institution on the other hand saying that this right can't apply absolutely, that it may be limited by something else. In the case of the example, we will have the voter or the political party that took the government to court in that particular case. We will have the voter on one hand and we will have the authorities on the other hand, those who are responsible for administering the elections. And we will have the right to vote that is in dispute, and we will also have some other legal instrument, in this case the provisions in the Electoral Act, that we have to investigate. And in the end, we will ask ourselves, what exactly does this right entail? How far, what is the scope of the protection of the right to vote in section 19(3)(2)? And then only once we have conducted this threshold inquiry that there is indeed a right that is affected, do we lodge into the rest of the justification inquiry. Only then do we start weighing up. And then we weigh up, if I can just draw, and I'm not very good at this, but if we can draw scales here, on the one hand, we have this right in the Constitution. How important is this right? What does it protect? Who are the beneficiaries? Who are the bearers of this right? And we saw that this is an important right. And on the other hand, we also have the aims and the purpose of these limiting provisions, because now we have to say, but why do we have this requirement of the ID? Because if we don't have it, we will never know who all these voters are. Anybody can pitch to vote, whether you're 16 or 17 or a South African or not. And in other words, we will have two different sides. The dispute will be all about the interpretation of the right and the limitation of the right, whether it can or cannot be limited in the way the other party wants to argue or wants to see it being limited. In this instance, the government, the Electoral Commission, who has to administer the election, will say, but this is a justified limitation. We need to know who these voters are, otherwise we can't guarantee a free and fair election. So what is the threshold inquiry? And this is just a theoretical stage, but common sense basically just says you can't have a Section 36 analysis, or we can't have a dispute about a bill or a right in the Bill of Rights if no right is infringed. For example, if I go to court and I say, instead of this right that I have to vote, there is some measure that now limits my right to internet access. Question is the right to internet access protected in the Bill of Rights? No, it's not. So the minute there's no right to be protected, we don't have to go into the Bill of Rights inquiry. Then we're dealing with a different kind of litigation. So we only go into the Section 36 analysis if we are sure that there is indeed a right somewhere in Chapter 2 in the Constitution, that there is some right that is affected by a measure or by conduct in terms of a measure. First question, in other words, is there a right in the bill either threatened, infringed, or limited by a measure or an action that is now contested? That's the threshold. If we don't cross that threshold, we don't even go into the rest of the house. The rest of the house being the justification inquiry. If we say, yes, we do have a right, yeah, we have it, Section 19, then we enter the house. Now we start asking, what is the purpose of the right? Who is protected by the right? Then we start this whole analysis. What is the purpose of the limitation? Is there a rational connection between the limitation and its purpose? Can we really ensure the identity of our voters by requiring that they produce their IDs when they get to the polling stations or not? Okay, so that is why. And only once we are done with this inquiry, this entire analysis, will we establish whether this particular measure, in this instance the Electoral Act, is in line with the Constitution if we look at Section 36. Because yes, it may limit the right in Section 19.3, because 19.3 is an unqualified right. All adult citizens may vote. But if it is shown that this is a justified limitation in terms of Section 36, then this Act will be valid. If it's not, if it is unduly burdensome, if it affects the core of the right, if it really takes away the right of a lot of citizens to vote, then it's unlikely to be justifiable. And if it is then not justifiable, the court has the power to say, I declare this invalid. In other words, then the Section 36 analysis then shows that this particular limitation cannot be justified. Okay, I hope it helps, and please let us know if you need it explained in another way. We'll gladly do it.